Welcome back to Grit Gym. Today we're talking. I got Eric Schwager here, so he's going to drop some knowledge bombs on you. But we're gonna go over work sets versus warm up sets. So, how do you actually do your warm up? What's the purpose of a warm up? Everybody kind of knows, like, oh, let's get your body prepared for exercise, right? We might have a visitor. But getting prepared for exercise. But how do you do that? What's the best way to go about it? Because really, there's some pretty significant errors. The courtesy of live shows. There's some pretty significant errors that happen along the way that we see on a pretty regular basis. But do we have any announcements before we get going? You going to do the float trip?
Float trip the next Saturday after this.
Yeah, it's Camp Euphoria this weekend. I don't know if you're going.
8 more days. I don't think I'll be there this weekend, but I am going on the float trip. So
float trip.
Yep.
So float trip is bring your own paddleboard, kayak, canoe. I don't think that you want to be. Anyway, I don't think you want to bring an inner tube, but. Going down a river, that could be kind of interesting, especially right now. There were so many trees that were down when we went and scoped it out last weekend. It was kind of insane. Yeah. It was cool though, because the water was a little bit higher, a little bit faster. But anyway, it should be a really good time. We're planning to be on the water for about 2 hours. So, but anyway, on to warm up sets, work sets. Why would this be significant?
So here we're so when we're talking about warm-up sets, we're talking about specific warm-up sets.
Can you guys tell who wrote this? I did. Eric did not write it. I wrote this. Like bad.
So defining these, right? So warm-up sets, we're talking specific warm-up sets. So example, say we're starting with some variation of a squat. Our warm-up sets would be the sets leading up to our working sets, which are the sets and reps that we have clearly defined for that day's workload. There's kind of two mistakes you can make with your warm-up sets. You can either do too little or too much, and both of them are going to kind of hurt your working sets.
Too many. Okay, so when you say too much, do you mean too much weight, too many reps, too many sets?
Any of that.
Any of that?
Any and all of it, depending on the circumstance.
Let's go into an example of that.
Okay, so why don't we first, let's define what we're trying to do with the warm-up first. So, right, I can think of 3 things that we're trying to do with our warm-up, right? The first one is we're trying to increase body temperature and the temperature in the working muscles themselves. We're trying to...
So body temperature sounds really simple. Keep writing. Body temperature sounds really simple, right? Like, oh, duh. But just because we stick you in a sauna doesn't mean that you're ready to exercise. There's a lot more to this thing than just increasing your body temperature. So you're increasing the temperature of the soft tissue, so ligament, tendon, muscle, because that's what's surrounding the joint. But also you're increasing the temperature within the joint, which improves the synovial, which gets the synovial fluid going around. Synovial fluid is basically, it's kind of like the oil in your car. It just gets everything lubed up, ready to go. You can make a few jokes off of that's what she said, jokes off of what I just said. But anyway, so, warm-up is not so, I don't know, ambiguous. It's a very ambiguous term. So body temperature is a big deal. So what was the second one? We grease the motor pattern. Do explain this one, because this is a really good one. I don't think people get.
So these next 2 are products of the nervous system. So greasing the movement pattern, this would be like the technical aspect of the lift. So going over things, say we're squatting, and you might have a few things you're trying to improve in your squat. These warm-up sets would be the time to specifically focus on that, but as well as focus on everything you need to be doing for a squat in general. So
technical proficiency?
Exactly, yeah. Right? Yeah.
So just getting better at the actual exercise. So,
right.
This is one of those things that like when you look at proper technique, it's like, well, proper technique looks a lot like good movement, and good movement keeps you out of getting injured. Right. That's the reason you do this. Anyway,
totally.
Keep going.
And then the third one is increasing neural signaling or neural drive. So kind of ramping up our nervous system to efficiently send a signal from the brain to the working muscle to contract those muscle fibers and produce the force that we want.
Yeah. If you've ever noticed, like on your first set of doing something, you like let's say if you've been lifting for a while and you build up to a certain weight and you're like, man, that set felt so heavy, and you're like, okay, well, I won't go up any heavier just because that set felt so heavy. I don't know why that's so hard to say, but and then you come back to it in your second set, you're just like, wow, this feels so much lighter.
Right.
That's neural drive. Your body noticed that you were doing something and you needed a little bit more right now, and it's giving it to you. That's the idea of coaxing. Like, coax the gain. Well, that's where it begins, right there. That's where it begins. I don't know why that came out. But like, that's what I ended up doing. So tickle your neurons.
Yep. And yeah, so and along with that, kind of increasing neural signaling, treating every warm-up set like it is your working weight, exploding up with that weight.
I think that's a huge one. I think that's one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about today. Is the most
huge mistake.
Probably one of the biggest mistake is not treating every single repetition like it weighs 5,000 pounds.
Yep.
Like if you get in really good position and you practice really good, technically sound reps, and you pound that off of your chest with bench press, or you drive your feet through the floor really hard as if you have 500 pounds on your back, I think you're just going to end up getting stronger, even if you didn't do like go into the heavier sets.
Yeah, totally. I think that mental part of that, trying to literally move the weight as fast as possible, right, fits more into the neural signaling, and then getting everything, like driving your heels into the floor as hard as you can on every set of bench, even if it's just the bar. That's like, it's a specific motor pattern. So if you're not doing that on your warm-ups and then you change something like that on your working sets, you didn't really ingrain it as much as you could have in your warm-up, even though the movement might have looked the same.
Yeah.
But it's technically not the same movement. It's very similar. But everything should be locked in 100% on every one of your warm-up sets.
And let's talk a little bit about general population versus competitive athlete, because competitive athlete, like, this sounds like glory to them, right? Like they can get a ton out of this, but why general population? You know, like, why would general population do all this stuff?
Because
they're not competing,
right? But yeah, it's just to get the most. Like, this stuff is also giving you the most investment back for your time. So if you're already in here, you're already going to do a certain amount of sets. Why wouldn't you do this?
Yeah,
right.
Plus, and this used to be a more common thing when I first started getting into this. And I remember this came up. I got into an argument. This is like way back when my first interview ever was with this trainer. I was trying to get a job, and this lady thought that there was a difference. She thought that you should train different as an athlete than as a general population person. I'm like, no, the only difference is that an athlete is competitive. Right. Otherwise, the training should look fairly similar from, conceptually.
Yeah.
And she did not agree. But now you're seeing less and less of that as time has gone along, where it's not just this bodybuilder, make the person feel good, and get them some exercise. Now it's like, there's some science behind this, there's some reasoning, there's some logic, and more people are picking up on that concept. I think anyway.
Yeah.
I hope.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
So what was that first question you posed before we?
Oh, what are some of the errors? So I said, one of the errors is that we see too much. You do too many reps, or you do too many sets, or you didn't do the math and your percentage is too high.
Yeah.
So like, let's say you're going to pick, you've got your 1 rep max, and you're like, all right, well, I'll do 70% as my warm up, and I'll do that for 12 reps. Well, what you don't realize is that's a max set. You just did a max set on your first rep, on your first set. That's your warm up set. So you'd actually have to back that down quite a bit. So that did all 3 of them. It didn't do too many sets, but it did too many reps with too much weight.
So going along with, so the problem with doing too much.
Yeah, good point.
The problem with doing too much is that now you're expending, you only have a limited amount of resource for that workout. And so you're expending that on your warm-up sets. So therefore your working sets aren't going to be moving as well. You might not hit the numbers you wanted to, et cetera. But if you're doing too little and you're not meeting these criteria, then you're screwing yourself over in the opposite way. It's not a problem of not having energy. You're just not locked in. Your work sets are going to go down, not because you did too much, but because you didn't do enough to increase body temperature, grease that motor pattern, and improve neural signaling. So I think the big thing that this comes down to is during the warm-up, you want to do the least amount possible to achieve this.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do any more. Once you have adequately met this, now, of course, this is hard to define. It's not a quantitative thing.
And it's going to change from person to person, but we can make some generalizations.
Sure,
So any of the numbers that we give, like that we've given so far, like you can definitely, they're all debatable because we're talking in a hypothetical.
Right. It's all right. Yeah. But we can give a general.
Can we give some examples? You okay if we erase this and give some examples out? Yeah. I didn't want to erase your masterpiece. But like what would be an example of like too many sets? Let's do that first.
Okay, so
let's say you're doing 4 sets of 3, and you're going to do squat.
Okay. Well, okay, yeah. So too many. So if you're warming up to 4 sets of 3, one.
So 3x, 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 3x.
Okay. And so
set 1, set 2, set 3, set 4.
Yep. So generally, if I was warming up for a set of 3, I would also do sets of 3, but not because I'm trying to match it to my working weight reps necessarily, because if I was doing sets of 10, I wouldn't be doing sets of 10 in a warm-up.
Right, because you wear yourself out.
Right. Yeah. And
fatigue is a thing. You have to, like neural fatigue, like the neurons that we were tickling earlier, and just general like the carbohydrates that you have stored up in your body. Fatigue is a thing.
So, for example, so if we were doing sets of 3, let's put some numbers on these so that people can.
Okay, so let's say you're working up. Let's just throw easy numbers out. So, let's say you're doing a squat and you're going to build. You know that you're going to build up to 245, so you might go 225, and you might go, let's say, 185.
Okay. So now, are these your working sets?
These
that
are
you're calling these working sets?
I'm calling all of these working sets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm starting at 185, and this percentage is decently low, this is kind of an in-between one, but what we want to do is bridge that gap between the warm-up sets to kind of have an even transition. But at the same time, if I was doing sets of 3 on that, I would probably do, and this is considering I just had a full warm-up, so my core temperature is already pretty high. So another reason why I wouldn't need to really go above 3 reps per warm-up set. So I'd for sure be doing 2 to 3 sets. Well, yeah, 3 times, yeah.
Trade me.
So I'd probably start at 3 times, say 95.
Yeah.
3 times 135.
Yeah.
And at this point, I would ask myself,
for warm-up sets.
For warm-up
so like
sets.
Obviously, if you can squat 245 for 3, and you're coaxing the gain, so you're actually lower, then you can you can get 95 and 135 easy, right?
Right. And so at this point, so say I do 2 warm-up sets. At this point, have I met those criteria? Is my form feeling good? Do I feel like I'm locked in? I'm being technically proficient? Do I feel like that weight is moving up fast? I'm explosive. And then do I feel like my body temperature is adequately elevated? And generally, like you kind of mentioned earlier, if you have a good general warm-up before you get to the bar, your body temp is probably going to be up.
It should go without question that we've already done our mobility, we've already done our stability, we've already done our muscle activation. We've optimized our body for movement. We've done a comprehensive movement thing, like we've done some lunges, some lateral lunges, some squats, and stuff like that, just body weight before we got to this point.
Which is, I think, pretty well established that that's ideal, but there's still actually a lot of like people out there who don't do that, and a lot of smart people, honestly, who don't, like kind of the starting strength community and the subsets there, like they would argue, like, you know, if you're going to squat, just start with the bar and work your way up, and that's the warm up.
So they're in a different category a little bit because, for one, they're more experienced lifters, and for 2, if you're a more experienced lifter and you're that good, then you probably are predisposed to already having that pattern down.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about their clientele, their general clientele. They would say
I like the idea of staying, like, not losing your stiffness before you actually get into your lift, but at the same time, at what cost? So, like, we've got to take anyway. Yeah. That's a different.
So anyway, so if you're, so we can set, how about we can use that to say that if you're not going to do if you don't believe in a general warm-up before you get to your actual main movement, then you'll need to do a few more warm-up sets or a few more reps per warm-up set generally to meet one of those 3 criteria, which is increasing body temperature. Yeah. So say I do this. At this point, I would ask myself, how is the weight feeling? If it's moving fast and explosively and I feel like my technique is proficient, then I would just go right to here. If I feel like it's not quite there, I would probably go ahead and add 1 more set maybe at like 165.
Yeah.
This could kind of be anywhere, but.
And if this happened, like if you're going into this route, like you might just give up on the idea that you're going to make it to 245 that day.
Like if this is feeling like really shitty is why you do another?
Yeah, if you're feeling really shitty over here, you probably like don't want to push it over here.
Yeah, right. So
it's a signal. You got to listen to your body.
That's another good point. Like you can use your warm up to feel out how the day's going to go and whether you need to adjust your weights before you get there.
Yeah, but I do it just like this. Like basically I take whatever this top number is. My first warm up set. Well, this one's dead. My first warm up set is about 50% of that. What's that look like? And then my second warm up set is about 75% of that. So 185, 75% of 185. I'm guessing is right around 135. Yeah, like so. Basically, that's how I do it, and then I bust into my actual sets.
Yep.
Yeah, this one's done.
Yeah. So I think that like that's a pretty if you want to be quantitative about it, and I think that's better for non-experienced lifters.
Yeah.
Especially who kind of don't know what it feels like to be on point and to be feeling good, because they might not have had a bunch of good or bad days to draw back on and look at.
So if you haven't been lifting for more than 5 years consistently, you probably want to do some kind of math in your head just to real quick.
So I think we could say, in general, I think a good I don't know. There's so many ways to do it, but maybe hitting something around 50%, and then around 5 reps, and then another one at 75%, 3 to 5 reps is a really good, easy. Like if you just want, to have a solid number to hang on to.
Yeah, and I almost always start with the bar. Squats, squats and bench press. I always do a few reps with just the bar.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, and it's that. It's less neural drive, and it's just like I'm gonna get the pattern down. I'm gonna make sure my hips are in place. I'm driving out. I'm really getting a good pattern. Deadlift, I don't do that, but that's because most people just kind of pick up on the deadlift.
Because you want to start from a certain height on deadlift. You don't want to just do the bar and then be guessing stopping it, right? That kind of changes the lift.
Sometimes I will go through like a quick just overhead squat, like just a quick circuit. Like I'll do some RDLs and some overhead squats back and forth.
Which is basically just a general warm-up.
Just a general warm-up,
continued.
But that's pretty rare. But yeah, I think that this is the way to do it. I know that when I was at Iowa State, they did it like, so they would do, let's go back to this. Let's say they were doing sets of 3. They would do, I'll just do it this way. So they would do 1 set, 2, 3, 4. Let's say they were going to 6 that day. And they would do, let's say that they were going to do 3 working sets. Well, their first set, they would consider this kind of like their warm up, and they would almost use it as like they would tell the guys, they would tell the guy, they wouldn't call this a warm up set. They would call it a speed set. They'd be like, these are your speed sets. You're trying to, let's say they're doing squats, like you're trying to really sit back in, get in good position, explode out of the hole. Like for the first 3 sets. So they might have gone, let's say they were going to work up to like an 80%. So they'd go 80%, just to get some numbers on this, 80%, and then they maybe went 70. And then their first big jump was up to 60%, closer to here. And then maybe they were at 30% of their 1 rep max and 30% of their 1 rep max. Like that's how they would do it. So their warm-up sets and their speed work were the same, because those guys are fresh out of high school. Like they don't know what they're doing. So they would kind of do what we were talking about earlier in these first few sets. Have 1 big jump up to, it was always more than this, but 1 big jump between like set 3 or set 4, and then they would go to set 6 or set 8 depending on the day. But that's how they did it.
Yeah,
I thought that was really
smooth
smart.
transition, kind of right up to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But what else is there? So we have the airs, doing too much. What about, so we did, let's show some other examples of of airs. So we didn't go too far into that. So let's say we're back to that 3
sets of 10?
4 sets of 3.
Okay.
And we're going to do warm-ups. Here, you can. I need to stop writing. My handwriting's so awful. But like, let's say that you did 5 sets to warm up. That's like, you're just wearing yourself out, right?
Right.
So if we were doing that 245, what do we say, 225, 185?
Yeah,
and then
right.
over here, we did, 95, 135, 175, like we're just getting too many sets in before, we're just wearing ourselves out before we get over here.
Yep. Yeah, common mistake. So that would be wearing, that'd be doing too many sets in your warm-up, probably more than you need to. You've already, by set 3 out of 5 there, you're probably already meeting those 3 criteria we covered earlier. Then after that, you're just kind of expending energy. And by the time you do those extra 6 reps, your first set is going to feel a little harder than it would if you didn't.
Yeah.
So another big thing is that I've seen before is like people try to just, no matter what, match their warm-up sets or their warm-up reps to their sets. So maybe they're doing something like 3 sets of 12 that day, and then they'll, for some reason, think that they need to do sets of 12, even if their intensities are right. Maybe they're just starting at the bar, but they'll do sets of 12, then they'll go 95 sets of 12, 135 sets of 12, and then they're starting at 185 sets of 12. Well, you already did 36 reps. Like, that's going to have a big effect.
Done.
That's a lot of volume before you even get to your first set.
And the further you go with this thing, if you've been lifting for a little while, you're trash at that point. Like you're not like that sounded like
if you're if you know how to treat every rep like it's especially like if you're treating every rep like it's 500 pounds and you're locking in everything super tight, that's going to be really fatiguing and really ruin your workout for the day.
Yeah, it just drowns you out. But yeah, that's how I do it. I just do 50% of the first set and then 75% of the next set because it's easy to do in your head.
Yeah.
If your first set is 200 pounds, I know that I'm going to start out with I'm probably not going to throw on an extra 2.5. I'm just going to throw on 95, and then I'm going to hit 135 or 150 somewhere, 155, something like that. And then I'm going to go up to 200, and then I'm going to go on.
Yep. Yeah. That's kind of, I've kind of like lately, my warm-up sets, I won't put any sort of intensity marker on it. Well, for me, what is really different, like say I'm doing squats, like out of, squats or something right now where I feel like I need a few more sets to lock in that motor pattern on lately. And so I'll probably end up doing a couple extra warm-up sets on squats to allow me to do that rather than bench. Usually on bench I could probably get away with 1 warm-up and feel like I'm all ready to go.
Really?
Yeah.
Not I.
And but with squats, like I will maybe go up to a fourth set occasionally. Because sometimes it just takes that, but I'll feel it out by the day, and some days it's a little different than others.
Yeah.
And so I'm, instead of thinking intensity, I'm just thinking when do I feel like I've met those 3 criteria and I'm ready to crush that first set of working set. But that does that takes some more experience, but also some people just like having a number to go off of, and it's just easy, and you don't really have to deal with that,
Yeah.
But
or there's some people like me that
both ways are fine.
Like I'm so good at shutting out the whole no, no, I can do it.
Yeah.
That you end up impeding yourself because we're talking about training days here, not max out days. A max out day is going to be different than a training day.
Right. Yeah. This isn't warming up to a set of 1 that you're trying to get the highest set of 1 on. This is just your.
What would you do if you were trying to? Because that's one of I think the biggest error that I see is when people are going for a set of 1 or a set of max reps or just a true 1 rep max. They do like 12, 8, 6, 4, and then they go for their 1, and it's like you're already done.
Yeah. If I was warming up for a set of 1, and I don't have it, because I don't do sets of 1 very often, and so honestly, and I've never competed in a powerlifting meet, so I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. But what I'd recommend is that definitely not going over 3 reps on anything, and spacing out those working sets by quite a bit of time, but adjusting that time to meet the intensity. So say maybe you're working up to a 500-pound deadlift, and you start with 135 for 3 reps, and then if you're going to jump up to 225, from there you might only need I would say 2 to 3 minutes, but then as that intensity gets higher, as you go from 225 to 275 or 315, you might take an extra 30 seconds, and then when you go from 315 to 365, you might take another 30 seconds added on that. So now you're on 4-minute rest, etc. up to that last set.
You probably, if you're really going for a true one, you probably want at least 6 minutes.
From like that last warm-up set to the set of one. Yeah, definitely, yep.
Yeah, maybe that's something, But yeah, if I was gonna work up to like a max rep where I'm just like, I'm trying to go for like, let's say as many reps as I can, well, I'm gonna use about a 5 rep max. So anyway, what I'm gonna do is probably do 2, 2, 2, and like these first 2 are just gonna be warm-ups, and then I get into my first set that's like a little challenging, and then I'll work up to another one, I'll work up to another one, and then I'm probably gonna finish off right here. And let's say I get 5, like that's what I'm going for. If that makes sense.
You're saying a max rep set?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get, like, let's say like I'm using a 5, and I
is this what you were talking about earlier, or were you talking about ramping up?
No.
Okay.
This is totally different.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you were on the right side. Yeah, you were on top again. I was meaning, but let's say I get 8 here, and last month I got 5. Well, did I get stronger? Yeah, of course.
Probably
I did.
as long. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like this is how I would do it. I wouldn't do 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, because by the time I got to this last set, I'd be too tired. But I might even just do 1 for each one of them. It just depends, especially for bench.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else you want to go over? I don't know. I think that covers all the stuff that I had.
Yeah. You got questions?
Yeah, I don't know. Do we? I thought we had a. Hey guys, what's going on? Oh, Rachel just laughed at something. She's probably laughing at me. Probably have a booger in my nose. All right, that's basically that's the majority of what we have. The idea that sparked this was you weren't out here yet, but a few years ago we had this intern that he came out, and his first day he opened up on bench. This guy probably weighed 150, dripping wet. Mm-hmm. He's a little guy, and he came out and he opened up on bench press at 185 for like 10 reps. I mean, he just sat there and repped him out.
Yeah.
And the last one he's all shaking, racks it. And I don't know what he did after that, but I was like, wow, that's a bold move. 185 for your first repetition. So he burned himself out. So then I don't think he could have probably done another set of 1 with 185. But if he would have done a set at 95 and then 135 and then 175, 185, 185, he might have been able to get a couple sets.
Yeah.
But anyway. That's how you would do the difference between warm-up sets and work sets. They're 2 different things. One is to prime the body for exercise so that you can get more out of it, and also so that you can stay healthy. And then the work sets are actually training sets to get you because you're giving the body a signal, and then you're asking for it to respond to that signal. And you give the body a signal, and you ask it to respond. And that response is where the body goes, okay, well, you want some more muscle? Here you go. You want some more strength? Here you go. You want less fat? Here you go. But that's why this is important, because you have to stay healthy. Nothing stops progress and motivation like an injury. So anyway, anything else you want to add before you jump off?
No, that's it.
That's it. All right, cool. Please like, share, comment down below, and if you're up for it, float event is July 21st. You have to be, if you go on the newsletter, it'll send one out to you automatic, I think. But there's an RSVP link in the event somewhere around here on Facebook. I don't remember which direction it is from where I am now. But anyway, thanks for being here, guys. Really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.